In this Baldur's Gate 3 Lae'zel build guide, I'll be showing you how to play Lae'zel in Baldur's Gate 3 if you want to make her into a fighter wizard that is extremely hard to kill and has a lot of flexibility. Eldritch Knights combine the martial prowess of fighters with some wizard spells anyway, and wizards have the flexibility to change spells when things aren't working for them. In this guide, I'll also cover ability scores, class features, equipment, and I will provide tips on how to get the most out of Lae'zel when played this way. Eldritch Knights are arguably the strongest fighter subclass in BG3 because not only do they gain all things regular fighters gain like extra attack and extra feet, and all the weapon and armor proficiencies, but they can also use several spells that make them even more effective in combat. These include Shield, Magic Missile, Burning Hands, Acid Splash, Blur, and Misty Step. By taking some levels of Wizard, Lae'zel can also make use of higher level spells like Haste, Fireball, and Lightning Bolt while also being able to learn from scrolls. If you take the Evocation School, you can also cast AoEs without worrying about harming yourself, and if you take Divination, you have more battlefield control. In this guide, we'll discuss why you might select either of these. Additionally, I've added a way for Lae'zel to gain Arcane Acuity somewhat easily, which makes her spells more difficult to save against, allowing her to attack the first turn or two and follow up with devastating spells afterwards. Since Lae'zel is a Githyanki, having some spellcasting talent makes sense for her character. Since Lae'zel begins BG3 as a fighter, her ability scores are in line with what a typical fighter might have. However, you'll want to respec her eventually to get the most out of her, otherwise she will not be optimized for much of the game. You can see that we've evened out many of her abilities to provide more benefit. I've set Dexterity to 14 in order to get the most of medium armor and to provide some initiative, and I've increased Intelligence to 12 to help with spell difficulty class, and to be able to slot an additional wizard spell. You can dump Intelligence early on in the game if you plan to use the Warped Headband of Intellect, but you will eventually need to slot a different helmet, so if you do this, you'll want to respec eventually. Also note that you can play this build as a Dexterity fighter if you want, and you can dump Strength, increase Dexterity to 16, and pump Intelligence to 16. However, if you do this, you will limit yourself to Finesse weapons, which means you essentially need the Felar Aluv, since making use of Great Weapon Master is a big part of this build. When it comes to skills, Lae'zel has proficiency in Athletics and Intimidation from her background, so you cannot change these. Athletics is good for pushing and resisting being pushed, but what other skills you choose is not particularly important since Lae'zel won't be handling many dialogue checks, but Acrobatics is a good pickup for even more push resistance, and History is also not bad because Lae'zel should have decent intelligence. I like to keep my companions at least the class they begin the game with since it feels like that's how Larian intended for them to be played, and it's no exception with Lae'zel. Lae'zel begins the game as a fighter, but she doesn't yet have a subclass, and here we'll be selecting Eldritch Knight. This provides Lae'zel some spellcasting, which fits well with her story and race. The two main benefits of taking fighter first for this Lae'zel build is that she'll gain all weapon and armor proficiencies, and that she gains Constitution saving throw proficiency. This allows Lae'zel to use any weapon or armor in the game, and also allows her to add her proficiency bonus to concentration saving throws, making her more likely to succeed in them. This helps if she plans to use Blur, Haste, or any other spell that requires concentration. She will also gain Second Wind at this level, allowing her to heal as a bonus action for 1d10 plus her fire level once per short rest, as well as a fighting style. For fighting style, I recommend selecting Great Weapon Fighting, which allows her to get more consistent damage from her two-handed weapon. Defense is also an acceptable choice. At level 2 of Fighter, Lae'zel will gain Action Surge, allowing her to take a second action once per short rest. This really shines later on when Lae'zel gains extra attack, allowing her to attack 4 times in a given turn. Using Action Surge at the beginning of combat is a great way to gain full stacks of Arcane Acuity once Lae'zel has gotten the proper gear. At level 3 of Fighter, Lae'zel will get to choose a fighter subclass. We'll be taking Eldritch Knight in order to gain access to some wizard spells. I highly recommend selecting Shield and Magic Missile at this point, as well as Acid Splash. Shield will allow Lae'zel to use her reaction and a spell slot to increase her armor class by +5 for a round, which can make her extremely difficult to hit. Magic Missile is a great ranged option that can hit multiple targets and doesn't rely on intelligence to connect since it cannot miss its target and cannot be saved against. Acid Splash gives Lae'zel an AoE that can be used even point blank to hit multiple enemies, and once she's level 7, she'll be able to use this when surrounded, and then attack with her bonus action thanks to War Magic. She will also gain Weapon Bond at this level, allowing her to throw her weapon and have it returned to her, and prevents it from being knocked out of her hand. At level 4 of Eldritch Knight, Lae'zel will get to choose a feat. Here we'll take Great Weapon Master in order to deal more damage with her weapon, which will be two-handed, and also gives her an option for her bonus action to make another attack if she crits or kills an enemy with a melee attack. At level 5 of Eldritch Knight, Lae'zel will gain extra attack, allowing her to attack a second time each turn if she uses her action to attack. This is an extremely important level for her as she will become more effective in combat, essentially doubling her damage potential. At level 6 of Eldritch Knight, Lae'zel will gain an extra feat, one that all fighters gain at this level. Here she will increase her strength for more hit chance and damage. The hit chance is the more important of the two since Great Weapon Master will penalize her hit chance. If you made her a Dex fighter, then you would select Dexterity here instead of Strength. At level 7 of Eldritch Knight, Lae'zel will gain level 2 spells and War Magic. Level 2 spells allow her to use things like Blur and Misty Step. Blur makes her damn near impossible to hit in combat, and Misty Step provides good mobility when she needs it. Note that she will also gain one use of Misty Step per long rest for being a Githyanki at level 5. War Magic allows Lae'zel to cast a cantrip and then attack with a bonus action. This is a lot better on paper than it is in practice since generally you want to attack twice every turn if you can. However, this allows you to use Acid Splash to hit many enemies when they are grouped up, which can often outperform 2 attacks from a weapon. At level 8 of Eldritch Knight, Lae'zel will get to select her third feat. This will allow her to either choose Strength or Dexterity depending on how she's set up for more accuracy, or Intelligence for better spellcasting. Either of these is a good option, and whichever you go with, you will probably want to do the opposite with on her fourth feat at level 12. Next, she'll start taking Wizard levels. At level 1 of Wizard, Lae'zel will get to select some more spells. Here I recommend taking Ritual spells that don't consume spell slots when used outside of combat, as well as Thunder Wave for its knockback effect. She'll also get to learn spells from scrolls at this level, so keep that in mind. Arcane Recovery will also allow her to gain one level 1 spell slot back every long rest at this level, so be sure to use it when needed. At level 2 of Wizard, Lae'zel will get to select a magic school. I suggest either Divination or Evocation here. Divination will allow Lae'zel to control some outcomes on the battlefield, while Evocation protects friendlies from her AoEs. She won't have many AoEs, if any, at this point, so it's better once she gets Fireball or Lightning Bolt than before that point, so you can select either. At level 3 Wizard, Lae'zel will get to choose level 2 Wizard spells, but more importantly, she'll have level 3 spell slots. This will allow her to learn level 3 spells from scrolls like Fireball, Lightning Bolt, and Haste, so make sure you buy these and have her learn them. At level 4 of Wizard, Lae'zel will gain her fourth and final feat, which is made possible by 8 levels of Fighter. Here she should select Intelligence or Strength or Dexterity depending on what was chosen at level 8. Capping at 14 Intelligence may seem low for hostile spells, but we do have a way of increasing spell DC with Arcane Acuity, which I will discuss in the next section. Since Lae'zel is a fighter, she has access to all armor in the game. You want to look for armor with the highest possible armor class in order to avoid taking damage. She should have 14 Dexterity, so either medium or heavy armor is fine. One armor I can recommend later on is the Dark Justiciar Half-Plate, which also provides advantage on Constitution saving throws, which will allow her to maintain concentration on spells like Haste, Blur, or Hold Person more easily. Lae'zel will need to use a heavy or versatile weapon for this build in order to get the most from Great Weapon Fighting and Great Weapon Master. If you got the Everburn Blade at the very beginning of the game, this is a great weapon for her. Otherwise, really any two-handed weapon will work. If she went Dexterity though instead of Strength, you'll need to get the Falar Aluv Longsword from the Underdark. For ranged weapons, she won't really be using this all that often, but look for ranged weapons that benefit her in some other way, like the Deadshot. One really important accessory for this build is the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. This allows Lae'zel to gain 2 stacks of Arcane Acuity each time she hits an enemy. Arcane Acuity lets her add +1 to spell attack rolls or +1 to spell difficulty class for each stack. If on turn 1 she attacks twice, then action surges and attacks twice again, she will have max stacks of this on her second turn, allowing her to cast a hostile spell with a huge increase to spell attack rolls or difficulty class. As I mentioned earlier though, you can use the Warped Headband of Intellect early on, but eventually you'll want to replace it with the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, so if you did dump Intelligence to use that headband, make sure to respec at this point. Cloak of Protection is a good choice for Cloak since it provides 1 armor class and +1 to saving throws, and I like Gloves of the Growling Underdog for gauntlets because they give Lae'zel advantage on melee attack rolls when engaged with 2 or more enemies. This really helps with accuracy, which is needed when using Great Weapon Master's Toggle. Evasive Shoes are also good for boots because they also provide an additional armor class helping to protect Lae'zel further. For rings, I like Caustic Band and Ring of Arcane Synergy. Caustic Band simply adds damage to Lae'zel's attacks, and Ring of Arcane Synergy increases damage after hitting an enemy with a cantrip. This is nice for after casting Acid Splash and following up with a bonus attack thanks to Warcaster. For Necklace, I like Necklace of Elemental Augmentation to increase cantrip damage, but another good choice is the Psychic Spark, which makes Magic Missile fire an extra dart each time you cast it. Final tips. The general idea with this Lae'zel build is to build up Arcane Acuity stacks by attacking on the first and or second turn of combat, and then firing off a hostile spell that is unlikely to be saved against. Spells that are good for this are Burning Hands, Thunder Wave, Fireball, Lightning Bolt, or Scorching Rays. Note that none of these spells require concentration. Try to save concentration spells on Lae'zel for Blur, Haste, Hold Person, or something like Hypnotic Pattern. You won't always need these, but make sure to use them for harder fights, and make sure not to overwrite them with other concentration spells. For instance, you cannot use Haste and Hold Person together. Remember that Acid Splash can be a great spell when Lae'zel is surrounded if you want to save a spell slot or she's running low. Because of Warcaster, she can attack again after casting it on the same turn. You don't have to play this build with 8 Fighter and 4 Wizard. You can play with 6 Fighter and 6 Wizard, or 7 Fighter and 5 Wizard if you'd prefer. The downside is that you'll miss out on a 4th feat and Warcaster if you went down to 6 Fighter, but the upside is that you'll gain access to level 4 spells. Lastly, hang on to scrolls you come across that you'll want to learn with Lae'zel so that you can do so when she takes a level of Wizard. Also, consider taking 1 level of Wizard earlier in order to make this happen faster, like after level 5 of Fighter. So that wraps up our Lae'zel build guide. I don't know if we're going to do the extra companions for companion builds. I think the plan is to get back into doing the multi-classing guides, so I think you guys can expect one more of those later this week. Otherwise, we'll have it early next week.